professor in livestock informatics at Talbot College and head of network genetic evaluation service. His main areas of research apply in the genetic improvement of farm livestock, where traits valuable to the animal, the farmer, and society. It started in dairy cattle but has expanded to include beef, sheep, goats, and pigs. Recent social economic developments and the resulting price spikes have sharply focused attention on efficiency rates and environmental impacts. Recently, he's worked about exploring the use of deep learning to predict new phenotypes from mid-infrared MIR, earlier spectral data. Successes so far including predicting pregnancy status and TV status and extracting new phenotypes automatically with sheep CT scans and goat color images. There are expanding traits of interest that include Yogi's disease, BDD, and contaminants in milk. They are also looking to predict feed intake and methane emissions using MIR data in an international consortium. The recent increase in the use of such semen has altered the way dairy cattle are bred and has increased the selection intensity in dairy and has increased the amounts of meat produced by the dairy bird. This has opened up a new area of genetic research and genomic evaluation and increasing emerging dairy and meat industry. With that,
if there's an operation,
we're gonna go back.
Is this operation?
Yeah.
And which one's up? That's all.
That was not working.
Put on the collar. There we go. That'll work. And thank you very much, everybody, for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to come here and actually learn some things. That's part of the reason for coming, is to learn new things. And one thing I've learned this morning, thanks to Christine, that the distance between the anus and the vagina is an important trait. Now, interestingly, we've got a project starting in a few weeks' time where we will be taking photographs of the back end of the dairy cows and then automatically extracting image data about the udder. So I'm going to aim the camera a little bit higher and gather some automated distances between two and more apparatus for the purposes of genetic selection. But I've learned something that's been well worth the trip just for that one thing alone. I'm gonna, I guess I struggled when I put this together to sort of think how I would put some context to the whole thing. But actually, what I've been thinking about saying has already been said multiple times over the last couple of days, even this morning. So my talk is everything I'm about to say, plus everything that's been said already. So I don't really need to say all of that again. Okay? So everything that's already been said, especially with Christine's talk, and I'm going to focus on a couple of points specifically about cow size, because it's an important issue in the UK. It relates to a large number of items of policy and national importance. So I'm going to focus on that particular area, even though we do a whole range of work in a number of other places. Sentence was going, but there we go. I'll just move on to that. So I'm going to, oh sorry, I'll put a little conversion formula there, because all morning I've been struggling with kilograms of pounds. So I thought if I'm struggling, you will be too. So 1 kilogram, a bit more than 2.2 pounds. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing in dairy, what we've been doing in beef, and the convergence in beef and dairy industry, because in the UK, certainly for the last 40 years, the beef and dairy herd have been diverging So we used to have a kind of a dual purpose breeding cow that was good at producing non-poultry milk and good at producing quite a bit of beef. And in about the 1980s, we abandoned that strategy. We imported semen from North America and dairy cattle, essentially a North American Holstein, and the beef industry went its own way. You'll see from one that I show you now that that's changed probably in the last 3 to 5 years, and it's now rapidly converging again. And of course, we all know the future is not what it used to be. We're going to change course now, we're going to let where you're going, blah, blah, blah. So the importance here is that change is on the horizon. And I'm going to talk about some of the things that we're interested in changing rather rapidly. But overall, the kind of idea is to reduce methane per kilogram of products. That's, and I think Christine talked a lot about that this morning, how we can do that in dairy. That's the one driving force in the UK funding and policy from government, is how to reduce methane per kilogram of product. So a couple of important words there, words are sort of now and speed. So we can't wait to do it, and when we decide to do it, we've got to do it fast. But the good news is we've actually been doing it for quite some years. When we look at the data, we think about what do we have to do in the future to change things, and we look back and say, well, where are we compared to where we've been? Actually, we've been doing it already. So we've improved production per cow, we've improved disease resistance. So the number of animals getting diseased has reduced, and we've increased fertility. I took the slide out because I thought I would have enough time to show that. I have a slide that shows in the UK for the last 10 years, yield was going up and fertility was going down at the same rate. Not surprisingly, because they're negatively correlated in dairy cows. The more milk a cow produces, the less fertile she becomes if you don't do anything about it. But in 2000 or something, we introduced the fertility index in the UK, and yield carried on going up, and fertility changed direction and is going up and improving. It took 40 years, but the fertility of dairy cows in the UK is now the same as it was 40 years ago, but the yields have nearly doubled. So negatively correlated traits can be broken, but you have to record it. You have to have the phenotype, put it into an evaluation, and convince farmers to select for it. And thankfully, in terms of dairy cow fertility, that did work in the UK. So, what else have we been doing? Well, we've been reducing methane per kilogram of milk produced because we have fewer cows to produce the same amount of product. So, fewer cows means less food. Same amount of milk means less food per kilogram of milk. And the way we've been doing that is diluting the maintenance costs of producing the national quota of milk. We've been reducing the wastage of productive days. Again, each day a cow is on this planet, they're producing methane and other pollutants as well. So the idea is to maximise each of the productive days and reduce the wastage of infertile cows. Means you have to have less replacements. Now, sex semen has helped a lot in the UK. I'll show a slide in a minute, but I think in the UK we may well be the highest proportion of sex semen of any country in the world. And I think we're probably way over 75%, it could be 80% of all dairy inseminations by sex semen. Now, of course, what that means is that we've got higher selection intensity because now instead of selecting the top 50% of cows to replace the herd, we now select from the top 25%. So we'll just take the best 25% of cows, make us sex semen, and they become replacements. A couple of things about that, you have to be sure that they are the best 25%. Going in the wrong direction really quick, it's not really a good idea, but assuming you know the best 25%, you make some headway there. What it means though is that dairy farmers have an extra 25% nutritive to put in calves to a beef floor, and they can create those beef calves and put them onto the market. So in the UK, and again, while I'm here, I'm trying to sort of gather information about how it's different here to compared to the UK. Effectively, it means that the dairy herd now produces nearly 60% of beef in the UK. it either comes directly or many of the supplement accounts, the cow calf operations are part of stone accounts. So we've been doing it and been doing it for some time. Modern breeding cows are relatively good for the environment as well as the cow and the farm. And it's one of the very few situations where it's a win-win for everyone. So breeding more efficient cows that are good for the environment actually is more profitable than not. So, and why would we do it? Well, we're doing it because the environment here, I'm not referring to the geographical environment, I'm talking about production. Okay, so practices that we previously took for granted that were normal and acceptable are increasingly becoming unacceptable. And aside from farming, there's lots of other things. Smoking in public used to be common in the 70s. It's now very, very much frowned upon. And these are things in our everyday lives that we just accepted. In the UK, most dairy cows would be given antibiotics drying off. Okay, that's now very much frowned upon. The male Holstein calves produced from the dairy herd used to get exported to other countries in Europe where they ate the field. The field's not a big thing in the UK. So we used to export probably male unwanted male calves off to Europe. And the distance travelled was often in excess of 24 hours. So what happened is the retailers said to farmers, well, we're not going to buy your milk anymore if you export calves. So that put an end to the export market. So farmers shot them instead. And that solved the problem. It's not a welfare issue. The calves would be shot at birth within an hour. It saved the cost of the year tax, and you just have to pay the man to come and pick them up. So then the supermarket said, well, we're not entirely sure it'll be like that, maybe. So we're not going to buy your milk and shoot the cows. So farmers were compelled to keep all of their offspring to produce beef. And that's kind of why sex semen is so important in the UK, because it now gives farmers an opportunity to deal with an external force that was pushed upon them in a productive way. Actually, when you think about it, smoking in public was not really a very good thing to do. And shooting calves was not a very good thing to do. So it's not a big deal to have to not do these things. It just takes a bit of time to get used to it. And you can see I've put a few other things in there that we don't do now, that we used to do, because it was an economically good thing to do. You know, having bigger fields, putting out hedgerows, putting fertilizer all over the place. Standard practices, but now really not good things. So what we need to do is make sure that cattle breeding meets society's needs as well as farmers' needs. That's the imperative for doing it, as I said, in the UK, not so much here, but it will be coming for you, is climate change and extreme weather events. It flavours government policy thinking and where things are done. That flavours research funding and that flavours all sorts of things both on. We've had a couple of geopolitical events recently that had a big impact in the UK. The unavailability of fertiliser, the overnight quadrupling of price of fertiliser. And that had cast a long shadow on production for people that are heavily dependent on it. So it's kind of shocked the UK system how fragile the supply chains are, which has focused everybody's attention on efficiency. Much more so now, they're concentrating on input costs and the cost of maintaining the dairy herd and the beef herd rather than on outputs. So what I'm going to talk about now is the things that farmers are concentrating on and starting to think about that previously they had not thought about. These are things, nothing new. I was talking to Johnny earlier about nothing new under the sun. He's been around a long time. And he's seen all of these changes many, many times. Hopefully, I'll be seeing them in the future. But, you know, these changes take place, and the older you are, the more often you see it. But sometimes you don't change because there's no need to. But I was talking to a young fellow, John, I think, down here earlier. And I'm saying that, you know, we've dealt with change before, quite adequately. And a good example is at the turn of the century, in the UK, there was 1 million horses. Okay, and there were hundreds of thousands of people employed to look after horses. And about a third of all agricultural production was used for horses. And then tractors came along. And all in, I think within 5 years, all the horses went and all the jobs associated. But agriculture responded and survived, and went on to do greater things using tractors than it ever did with horses. And I guess a more pertinent observation is that the internet, I think John said he's got pairs of pants older than the internet. The internet, as we know it, is barely 20 years old. Think about that. Barely 20 years old. And we've gone from having no external communication with the ubiquitous tractors drive themselves because they have access to satellites and so on. That's all very, very new. And it reflects the way things are going to be changing. So I guess the message there is change is coming, but you are capable of dealing with it. It's not scary, it's an opportunity. So the point there is focus on feed efficiency and environmental costs now, rather than waiting for some time, waiting for it to become a big issue going down. Oh, isn't it? I did that graph. There it is. We talked about that. Fertility getting worse. Farmers responded. They had an index. They had the phenotypes, and they changed it. So it can be done. So this is the evidence. Just for my statement earlier about the rise in dairy inseminations. I mean, obviously that's goes to 2022, but it's more than that now. And beef semen, it says they're close to 50%. I talked to Marco this morning, he said it's now close to 60%. Okay, so dairy farmers are buying beef semen like it's going out of fashion, which I guess is good for the breeding companies, good news. The other difference is that 70% of dairy inseminations are by young germing sites. So UK dairy farmers have really got the bit between their teeth on phenotypes, genomics, and genetic improvement. But things are not in this kind of rush for doing things. What's the picture look like? Well, cows are getting bigger, and that means they're consuming a greater proportion of the resource just for being there. And we need to reverse that trend. So we need to do what we've already been doing and do it faster to reduce the methane emissions. The important thing about this is the word and now. The second most important is now. And is an important word. And turn the lights. Thank you very much. Thanks, Strong. No need for applause yet. So, yeah, the most important word is act. I think we need to do this and we need to do that, and we need to do methane, and we need to improve efficiency and so on. So it's not a case of, oh, I'm going to let this happen, to only that. You need to do everything. You need to do it everything. Somebody that's okay, so this is the reason why we need to change. This is from the 1950s and most recently, and as somebody pointed out, the person hasn't shrunk. Okay, the guy who wouldn't become hasn't shrunk, it's the cow that's got bigger. And the end result of that is that cows are bigger. This is the trend in maintenance. It's still going up in the UK. And that's because there's a pipeline of bulls flowing through the system. They've been selected for increased size, and so it will take some years for them to flow through the system at the other side. But the consequences of it is that we've got an extra 60,000 tons of cow to feed, which is about 90,000 mature Holstein cows. That's how many more cows we've got effectively because they've increased in size. And that's about an extra 10 cows per herd worth of feed. So that's going to take some time to reverse. Now, interestingly, a point I'm going to stick in here that wasn't in my talk. There's a lot of talk in the UK about the use of agricultural land for rewilding. Okay, so you need to consider in the UK is about the size of Lake Superior. Okay, so whereas here, where in the UK, there are 75 million people living in Lake Superior. And we have like 5 cows per acre. And I've noticed here you have 5 acres per cow. Because land here, you have a lot of land. In the UK, we don't have much and we're not making any. So we've got to do the best we can with it. So of course, one of the arguments for improving efficiency in agriculture is that you can release land that is currently used for high intensity agriculture or lower intensity agriculture. Okay, so for those people who don't like the idea of high intensity agriculture, if the agriculture we practice is efficient, you can release land for that purpose. It's probably not something that you're concerned about, but it is something that we that live in Lake Superior are concerned. The other interesting thing is hashtag phenotype is king is my slogan man at the front there, sporting the t-shirt. If you go on my Twitter account, there's an Etsy site where you can buy your own copy if you wish. But the point of it has actually got an origin in the fact that phenotypes are the source of everything we do. Okay, we need phenotypes to be able to genomically improve animals. And we've got in the UK, we can simulate abattoir records. So we've got over 10 million, I can't remember how many millions we've got of abattoir records. So every animal goes to the abattoir in the UK, pretty well. We get a copy of the record. We've got all the British cattle movement data, so that's the government database of when they're born, when they move, and where they end up. So we've got all of that. We have all milk recording data, all breed society database. So we've got a huge amount of data that we use for evaluations. And as Christine said, all the milk spectral data that goes along with that, it's hundreds and hundreds of terabytes, billions of records in these data sets. The thing we don't have is cow weight data. You won't believe it, would you? Nobody in the UK weighs their cows. They weigh calves quite often, but they don't weigh cows. So I showed it, I think Matthew said it. Nobody weighs their cow. It's always intrigued me. If you're talking about efficiency, if you're talking about stocking rates, if you're talking about kilograms of dry matter per hectare, how can you do all of that if you don't know how much the cows that are in the field weigh? It's just, I find it rather bizarre, to be honest with you. I'd be interested if anybody else can put a handle on that. So what we do in the UK is we predict cow weights from the carcass weight. So the carcass records that we get, we can back predict for those cows that have had multiple calves. We can back predict their weights. And we've been using that to produce some of the stats I'm going to show you. We can't yet predict killing out percentage, but in terms of phenotypes, I reckon that's going to be one of the next ones that we're going to be aiming at. If we can weigh cows immediately pre-slaughter, we can then calculate their killing out percent and use it as a phenotype in a breeding. So what we do in dairy is to enable farmers to breed more efficient cows and those that are environmentally sensitive. We've converted our national index, we call it BMI, I guess you could call it net merit, it's similar to net merit. But we've converted all of the traits in there from the units that they're measured in, like number of diseases, number of days, amount of milk. We've converted them all into CO2 equivalents and added them all together and then expressed PLI, the national index, on the CO2 equivalent of the traits that make it up. And it includes size and production and feed efficiency and all those things. And remember earlier I said win-win-win situation. The good news is that selecting for the environment is also highly profitable. And you can see at the top right-hand side of the graph, high PLI bulls also have high environment indexes. But you can see there's variation on the right-hand side. There are some that are better than others. But what it does, it provides dairy farmers with the moral encouragement and justification for doing what they do, and it allows them to defend themselves to the retailers, to the governments, to lobby groups, and say, we are doing something good. And we're going to replicate this for beef. It's going to be an environmental beef index, and that's likely to come out in the next few weeks or a couple of months. And it's the same thing, just converting all of the traits of the national beef index to CO2 equivalents. And you can see why live weight is an important issue for us there. Beef recording in the UK is fragmented. I think it's a bit fragmented here as well. And that represents a problem for making progress. As I say, we've got lots of carcass trait records, pedigree data. And this is the National Beef Evaluations AHCB website. So we produce carcass trait EBVs for all beef cattle that have animals slaughtered in the UK, and we publish them on the AHCB website. So you can go in there and look up any bull and find out what the carcass trait records are for the offspring of those bulls. And we do that for dairy bulls as well. So when a beef bull is mated to dairy cows, they get beef on dairy carcass trait EBVs. And they're all freely available on this web. So you can see in my slide that you put in things to translate. So some of the beef in the UK is like a cow-calf operation. And what I've done is try to sort of demonstrate in a simplistic way how it works in the UK. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm using this similar talk for talking to the Scottish government about sucklers, which is coming under great pressure in the UK. And the pressure is coming from the beef from the dairy. Okay, so it's becoming very difficult to sustain suckler beef in the UK because of the pressure from the dairy. Now, what I've done is I've made some very simple assumptions here about a calf being born and surviving, and then the calves itself at 2 years of age at 650 kilos. It matures at 4 years of age, has 4 adult calves, and each calf that it has during its life goes on to be a 750 kilo type beef animal. This is the kind of picture of it. This is the best case scenario. The interesting thing for me, on the top right-hand corner, when you multiply the number of days that an animal is alive by its weight, over its lifetime, in this lifetime scenario, it has over a million kilogram days. And as a farmer, that's what you pay for. You pay for the cost of maintaining each kilogram of cow over its lifetime. That's the cost. The benefit is the beef that cow produces, and over its lifetime, it's been best case scenario, it produces 4 that are going to go on to produce carcasses in the UK that would be 700 kilos, which is 2,800 kilos of prime beef. Okay, that's what come down to. So you can divide the number of days that the cow lives by the kilograms of beef that it produces through its offspring and get some kind of KPI. And then you can change some of the parameters to see where the big impacts are. And I think actually referring to Larry's talk earlier, which is a far more sophisticated version of measuring efficiency. This is quite a simple way, but it's good to demonstrate the point that your average cow has a cost of over 1 million kilogram days in its life. And obviously, the longer it lives, the longer it has. Now, the very worst thing in the UK that can happen for a suckling cow is it has a dead calf, because now immediately it's lost 25% of its production, but it's maintained all of its cost. Then if it, instead of calving at 2 years of age, it calves at 3, it's increased its kilogram days by nearly 300,000, so it's nearly 1.3 million kilogram days now. The same production, okay? So it's 18% less. And that's where the kind of thing comes from, the hashtag big cows about this picture. Okay? Big cows have increased maintenance costs, they have increased growing costs. They actually have increased late results and things like displaced animation, they're more associated with bigger cows. On the plus side, you get a higher cow count value, which in the UK is not that great, to be honest. Obviously got to be fair and balanced in this. And you may have a higher beef calf value. Okay, so do bigger cows produce bigger and better calves? So when I looked at the slaughter data to try and get a feel for what the UK Suffolk County, I simply used a 55% killing out percent. Because we don't have any values, so I just divided everything by 55%, and then listed out that there were quite a few thousand, about 10,000 bulls that had daughters that were Suffolk counts, and I just picked the top 10 and bottom 10, and you can see the top 10 average cull cow line weight predicted from carcass records is 930 or so kilograms. So what was that? 1,800, 2,000 pounds, isn't it? Yeah, 2,000 pounds. That's the size of these big cows, and you can see their breed is Charolais and Long Aquitaine, British Blue, Belgian Blue. So these big breeds, big carcasses, big cow cows, and you can see at the bottom ones are all, as I said, beef short horns, red poll, but they are of the order of 400 kilograms. Okay, what's that, 900 pounds? Half the weight of the cow. So the question is, do the Suffolk cows at the bottom produce any less good beef than the Suffolk cows at the top? So here I've done the same picture again there, that if the Suffolk cow is 550 kilos at first calving, it's 650, you end up with 876,000 kilogram data slide time, but you end up with 700 kilo cows, so 17% more efficient, and that's about the best. You see 300 grams of prime beef per day. We did it in dairy cows as well. The previous ones were beef. We did it in dairy cows, and you'll be pleased to see here that the biggest cull cow dairy cows at breed go on the left. That's Canadian and Holstein. They're all 750 kilos. The ones at the bottom are Frisians and New Zealand Frisians. They're 500 and something kilos. About 200 kilo difference between the small dairy cull cows and the big ones. Okay? And the question is, do the big cows produce more milk than the small cows? So we've been developing indices in the UK over a period of time. They've got, like they have in most countries, they've got more and more traits, they're getting broader, taking in more things. And we're currently looking at including things like methane and Johne's disease. We've been doing a lot to predict Johne's from milk spectrum data. So, this is the trajectory we're on, adding more traits to the index to make it more refined and so on. So to demonstrate the impact of various management practices, the graphs on the left, okay, that's the late 80s, early 90s, age at first calving of dairy cows. You can see a big peak at 2 and a big peak at 3. Lots of people calve their dairy cows at 3 years of age. There's not so much worry about the thing on the right, but that's the cumulative percent. So what I've done is I've taken where at 80, what's the 80% number? It's about 33 months in the top one, and the 80% number in the bottom graph, which is more recently, is kind of 26, 27. So you can see that over the last 30 years, dairy farmers have brought back the age of first calving closer to 24 months than 36 months previously. Now I'm going to have to confess I did a bit of animation, and animation doesn't normally go well, but let's assume that I've got it right here. If all of the animals in the loop on the right hand side were to calve for the first time here, it would save the UK dairy industry 107,000 tonnes of CO2. Okay? So simple management practice, and dairy cows are calved for the first time at 2 years of age are far more profitable than not. So if farmers improve their practice of calving for the first time at 2 years of age, they would make more money, their animals would live longer, and they would be better for the environment. So there's a mechanism of reducing environmental impact doable now. And this is the phenotypic trend in age of first calving. You can see it's going down, but it's still above 24 months, which is the ultimate, and there's a long tail. So then we look at beef, and beef today, this year, looks very much like dairy did back in the 1980s. Okay, lots of animals being calved for the first time at 3 years of age. And of course, by that time, they'll weigh an awful lot more. They'll have had an extra 365 unproductive days that cost you money, that produce methane for no advantage at all. And if all of the animals in the 80th percentile calves sold nearer to 24 months for the beef industry, it would save around 136,000 tons of CO2, 5,500 tons of methane. So we can say, what can we do about reducing environmental impacts of beef? Well, calving for the first time at 2 years of age and reduce their size. This is the trend, it's getting smaller, but it's still 32 months in the UK. Speed of adoption, and what we see here, effectively, we can see that those farmers using beef on dairy are reducing their average age of first calving quicker than beef farmers using beef on beef. Yeah. So the dairy farmers are responding to a reduced age of first calving much faster. That's the green ones going down this. That's the dairy process. So the beef farmers can do it, but they're just doing it much slower than the dairy farmers. So small and big cows. Well, I asked earlier, do big beef cows produce bigger beef carcasses and bigger? The answer is a bit, but when you divide the mean of the dam by the calf weight, eventually, for small cows you get a value of 1.26, for big cows you get a value of 0.9. So the beef output from big cows is insufficient to offset their size. And interestingly, it shows that the least efficient cows are the intermediate weights. There are some big cows that have big offspring that can offset their weight, but mostly the smaller cows are more efficient than the bigger cows in terms of beef output per kilogram of their own weights. So then I sort of summarised all of that as best I could in some kind of table. And you can see on the right-hand side, there's 900,000 cows in each of these groups. And these are the calf weights, the carcass weights of the offspring, where the dam type is dairy in the top row, and where the dam type is beef. So this is beef on dairy or beef on beef. And you can see that there's an average increase of 30 kilograms of carcass weight in favour of beef on beef, and an average advantage of a reduced age of slaughter of beef on beef. So that's minus 2.5 months and 30 kilograms extra carcass weight. Now, it's important to recognise in the UK, this is a point that the discussion with somebody earlier, the big carcasses in the UK are penalised by the experts. They don't like big carcasses because they have to process the carcass into saleable meat, and the size of the sirloin steak from a big carcass is too big for the retailers. It's too expensive. So big carcasses are not favoured in the UK. They may be more favoured here, but certainly our farmers get penalised for producing big carcasses. I've yet to be able to do it, but I'm going to work out what the carbon benefit and cost of that advantage is to try to see whether that advantage or what proportion of that advantage is consumed by the increase in size of the beef dam. Okay, so that's kind of for the next invite, Troy. I'll bring the results of that on next year. Other things that we're also looking at to try to improve this situation is we also get condemnation data for the abattoir. So that essentially condemnation data reflects liver fluke and lung one, both of which have a big impact on the growth and productivity of cattle. And so we're looking to see whether we can improve the prediction of carcass weights by including condemnation data in the evaluation, or in fact producing breeding values for resistance to worms that farmers can then use. So where do we go next? Well, beef and dairy is increasingly important. We've talked about the way that the beef supply has been altered rapidly in the UK in the last 3 to 5 years. But interestingly, if we improve the fertility of dairy cows, we have less wastage of dairy cows and more opportunity to select maybe from the top 20% instead of the top 25% to produce even more beef from the dairy herd by improving fertility. Smaller dairy cows and so on. So we can make changes to improve that position. We're also involved in all of the things Christine said about methane, international collaboration, We do all of that stuff as well. There's no point in me kind of going over that. But one point of interest that we're considering in the UK that I don't know how well that fits into North America is that market forces, free market forces, will slow down the reduction of methane in the beef and dairy herd because it doesn't make economic sense. There's no market drivers for reduced methane at the moment, other than the bits I mentioned to you that it actually makes economic sense anyway as a byproduct. So we're thinking in some regards, if society wants to reduce methane from agricultural products, then society may well have to pay for it in some way, and that may involve some form of direct intervention. I'm not sure how that would take place, but it's possible that it would, and I don't know how. But farmers are in any case going to have to be willing players in that process, or else. The or else is that they will not be around. So a couple of the other things that we're doing, as mentioned earlier, we're scanning sheep and extracting phenotypes from sheep automatically. We have 25 million sheep in the UK, so it's quite an important business. We have a project where we're doing accelerated genetic improvement in grazing cows. So this is the Farm Breeders project that we're looking at taking over from 5-month-old heifers, producing embryos and back implanting them into recipients later. These farmers are the ones that drove the live weight measurement. I was in a field with one of the farmers. There were 1,500 cows in the field, 450 kilo cows. Well, we know that now. At the time, he explained to me in great detail the kilograms of dry matter per hectare, the soil type, the plant species, the size of the field, this, that. After about an hour going on that grass, I said, and how many tons of cow have you got left here? He said, well, I don't really know. I said, well, how do you know how much grass to feed if you don't know how much ton of cow you've got? Good point, he said. Next time I went to the farm, he had a walkover wire on the exit of the grocery parlour. Within 18 months, I've got 110,000 dairy cow weights this farm. They're all genotypes, and they now have genomic breeding values for live weight to enable them to select bulls that depress live weight in a herd where, get this, he said they weighed 450. When he weighed them, they weighed 500. Okay? And this is somebody who's obsessed with cow size. So the point made earlier, how big do your cows? How much do your cows weigh? Everyone can have a guess, but the only way of knowing is weighing. There we go. So the future, it's great, really. I mean, honestly, let's not let a worldwide catastrophe go to waste. Right? We could really make some good mileage out of this. There's lots of overhanging fruit, reduced agent, first come, reduced agent slaughter, there's many things we can do. And these are easy to deploy, they're easy to monitor and publicize, so the future very bright, I'd say. And there's a list of things that you could do there if you wanted to when you go home. One of the things we have in the UK increasingly is integrated supply chains. And that might come up in conversation, I'm not quite sure how well they work in North America, but they're increasingly becoming dominant in the UK. So, a summary, you'll be pleased to know this is nearly the end. We've got enough now to improve sustainability. What Christine and others are doing will give us measures in the medium to longer term. We don't have to wait for those, we have things that we can do now. And those direct measures, when they come on stream, will allow refining of what we're doing. And there's a list of things there that you can take away and deal with in your breeding and your management decisions. So that's the end of it. I've got the acknowledgements there. Thanks to everybody that's done me. Thanks to Troy for inviting me over. And of course, as we all know, in the end, bad feelings like this king. Thank you very much.